Team High, welcome back to my garage. Episode 2. Here's what we're up to today. We're going to start by sharpening my little splitting hatchet. I use this thing to split kindling for fires in the wintertime. Well, whenever. To split, bigger chunks into smaller chunks, right? This is an S-wing. I think it's called the Fireside Friend, something like that. It's been pretty amazing. It's like a 4-pound head, which equates to like the big hammers that we've got over by the forge. Except for this one, obviously, is forged down to a taper for splitting, right? And then at the very end, the taper gets a little bit more, well, I should say a little bit less acute. It gets a little bit, it's like a secondary taper on there. Can you see that? And that's the part that we're going to sharpen up today. We're going to sharpen that up with this little sharpening puck that I have for axes. So this isn't great for your pocket knife, but for putting a relatively sharp edge on something, this would be decent for a lawnmower blade, maybe even. This puck is a great place to start. It's also good in case you go on a trip. You can stick it in your pocket and keep your axe tuned up wherever you are. This one has 2 sides. You can see there's a black and a gray side. The black side is more coarse, so if you really got to, like if your edge is really out of whack, if you pick up an old axe head that's been neglected, start on this coarse side, get your edge really close, and then switch over to your fine side and really get it dialed in. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with. After we get that done, after we get the edge of this splitter sharpened up, we're going to put it on this big chunk right here. I'm going to split this in half. I've got a good crack going down here in the middle, so this wedge is going to go on the crack, right? And then we're going to split that open by smacking the top of this wedge with this sort of mallet that I made. This was another big chunk of wood, right, where a branch came out of it, so there's like a fork here, so this thing's all knotty in here, and it should hold together pretty well. I took my little pocket, what do you call this thing? My silky saw, folding saw like this, and I cut around all the way around the end of this thing, right? So I cut in about a blade's depth all the way around, and then I used my splitter and just knocked that stuff off, right? So I left this handle-shaped part sticking out. So this is what I'm going to use my big mallet to smack my splitting wedge down into the stump that we're trying to knock apart. Okay. And after that, then we'll have some wood knocked apart, and we'll be able to use that for some spoons. Okay, I'm going to have to change the camera or something like that. So we'll do our sharpening first, and then our splitting. Okay, starting with tuning up our edge. My edge is in pretty good shape, so I'm just going to hit it with the gray side, the fine side. Just going to make some, I'm going to find in my bevel here. I'm going to try and match my bevel. I'm just going to go around with this thing. You can feel the spots where it's kind of hanging up. Spend a little extra time on those. It's okay to do this dry, i.e. with no oil. But if you want to use some kind of light oil on here, or even water, that's also okay. But I found that this thing runs pretty well when it's dry. It doesn't get too clogged up. Good way to cheat with this, or at least until you figure out how to get your bevel matched really well, is to color in your edge with a Sharpie, right? Cover this whole edge up with Sharpie. Then when you hit it with your stone, you can see what part you're leaving on there. So as long as you knock all that Sharpie off, you know you've covered your edge pretty well. Look at that, clean as a whistle. Sometimes you leave a little burr on here that you can feel. I don't have too much of one right now, or at least not enough to worry about. So we're just going to call it good like that. Alright, time to split this thing. I'm going to get my wedge here in the center. Try and match this existing crack. When the end of your if you've got a chunk like this is cut up, when the end starts to dry, the wood fibers will start to shrink, right? And when they do, it'll cause some internal stresses and cause them to crack here on the ends. It's called checking. When the end of your wood is cracking, it's called checking. So I'm just going to get this seated. Okay, so after all that, we ended up with 3 decent spoon-sized chunks here. This is only a quarter of what that whole stump was, right? But I've got at least enough stuff here for 3 decent spoons. I might be able to split one of these in half. The tricky part here is going to be this knot, right? You all see this knot when it came splitting apart? Knots like that are pretty big and tough to work around. The other thing is that when you get to the knot, like it causes that grain to get all curvy, right, as it grows around the knot. That's less than ideal for carving, right? It's nice if you got real nice straight grain, like this part appears to be. You know, if you're nice and straight like that, that's ideal. You get down to where that knot is and it gets all wavy. I think this will still be usable. One, I think if you get a little wave and you got to work around that, it adds a little bit of character, right? I mean, it's not great for production, but if you're just making a couple spoons, it's pretty kind of cool sometimes to have that in there. There's some really nice grain here on the edge. This stuff's from Pennsylvania. We grabbed it at Christmas time. It's cherry. Got some really nice figuring in here, and it's going to look real clean when it gets knifed out. Anyway, next time we'll start on this. I'll draw in my round spoon head, and we'll cut in the crank, which is what the part that you see, like if you take an eating spoon and lay it on the counter or on the table and look at it from the side, where the handle kind of bends up to the bowl. That part's called the crank. It's nice having a crank in a spoon because it helps you like get under things, right, when you're cooking. If you don't have that, you just have a flat spoon with a bowl cut in it. It's kind of weird, like you don't think about it. But to fill that spoon up and just hold it flat is a little bit weirder than having a little crank cut in your design. So we're going to cut in a crank tomorrow with a carving axe. You can also use a hatchet for something like that. We're going to use a carving axe because I got a sweet one right after Christmas that I told you all about. So you'll see that in action when you have our next installation from the garage. Maybe tomorrow, maybe later this afternoon. I don't know. It's going to start raining, so it's going to cut down on my outside activities. I know this doesn't have anything to do with welding today. We're power and automotive technology, but that's just how it's going to go during this. You're going to get what you get. Okay. I'm glad you all tuned in. Hope you enjoyed the first episode. I hope you got a little bit of a laugh out of this. This is a funny thing for me to do, but like I said yesterday, I'm glad to get in touch with you however I can. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you all are staying healthy. You're learning some things in this time off. Hope to catch you all soon. See you later.